coordinated network to create a line
Hello, can you guys all hear me? Um,
Yes.
so the room that we booked to be is currently the event that was being used for it is still kind of happening. So there's gonna be a delay. So just give us a few moments. I'll keep you all updated. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for sticking around after the press conference for a continuation of a conversation that didn't start just this morning, but has kind of been an ongoing conversation for quite some time. But I will say we have seen a much more coordinated conversation happening, especially over the last year or so, with all of the work being done by a number of the organizations, including CCM and the United Way, those who hosted us today. So just a quick thank you to them for organizing today's forum, and to those who are watching from home and participating via Zoom. So today's focus is on workforce solutions for young people. And I know if you're looking at the CGA calendar, which I'm sure all of you do every single day, you'll notice that this is actually being hosted by the Education Committee. And I think it's important to note that in the conversations that we have around being intentional with our coordinated efforts and including organizations to help our young people, our schools have become everything that I think that they were never intended to be. And because of that, it is so much more important that our community-based organizations are a part of the solutions for our young people, and that we are being, again, intentional about who we are engaging, and that we're ensuring that those organizations are providing the necessary resources and supports and services, and aren't simply contracting with districts or municipalities to receive a paycheck for an executive director. And so I think we often have to have difficult conversations around engaging nonprofits and making sure that they're the right nonprofits. And I know we have a few of those here today who are doing the good work. And so I do want to thank them for being here. I also want to say, when we talk about workforce solutions and the tie to education, that it goes beyond our traditional public schools, whether that's our neighborhood, our magnets, and our charters, but it's also our students that are under the control of our correctional systems and DCF. We have a district, USD1, that often goes overlooked and does not get the necessary supports to ensure that students or young people, are able to come out and be able to provide for themselves or for their future families. And so hopefully the conversation today is going to highlight a number of those workforce initiatives throughout the state, and some ideas. And we're going to hear directly from some of the young people who are most impacted by some of the policies and the programs that are being offered. And so with that, and you'll hear less adults speaking today, hopefully, I'm going to turn this over to, first up, we have, from the youth perspective, our Compass Youth Collaborative, Isaiah Jacobs, Workforce and Education Manager, along with Bobby Hemingway, a Training and Employment Program participant. In this portion, we're going to talk about the understanding of the crisis and its intersections. With that, I'll turn it over to Isaiah. Yep, just hit the button.
Gotcha. All right, good morning. My name is Isaiah Jacobs, and I'm the Workforce and Education Manager at Compass Youth Collaborative. Compass Youth Collaborative interrupts violence in the city of Hartford by building transformative relationships with youth living in the center of violence here in the city. Our frontline staff, who we call Peace Builders, provides youth with the tools they need to create sustained behavior change and successfully transition into adulthood. Our team takes youth from trauma to trusting relationships to transformation. In my role, I oversee Compass's Training for Employment program, which we call TEP. Compass Training for Employment program is different from traditional workforce programs. We understand that the youth that we serve typically aren't ready for traditional workforce. Oftentimes, our youth may not even make it through the application process. So our goal for TEP is to kind of get them to the starting line so that they could be best prepared. Youth work with job specialists who provide them with essential professional skills they need to succeed. Cognitive behavior theory skills are embedded in TEP as well, helping youth better understand the connection between their thoughts, emotions, and actions. And we typically house about 10 to 15 youth over a 12-month cohort. A 12-week cohort. Compass provides youth with a safe place to learn skills, practice those skills, fail sometimes, learn from their failures, and then try again. We don't believe in 3 strikes you're out. TEP components includes 4 days at a work site. We currently partner with Jones C. Darber Food Pantry, as well as the Brooks Token Incorporation. 1 day in the classroom, as I mentioned, with CBT workshops and resume building and mock interviews, and really honing on some of those skills to be better prepared for the next steps. Today, I want to introduce you to Bobby Hemingway, one of the youth on TEP. He will share his experiences in the Training for Employment program.
Hi, my name is Bobby Hemingway. I'm 20 years old, a Hartford resident and graduate from Achievement First High School. I started Compass Training for Employment program in August. I work 4 days out the week at Tess Brooks Token and attend CBT Group on Fridays. I joined TEP because it was an opportunity to build the work readiness skills I need to succeed in employment. I also appreciate the opportunity to work at the food pantry because it allows me to give back to my community. Since August, I feel my biggest growth has been my communicating skills and my ability to work collaboratively with a group. I'm now comfortable talking to my supervisor, asking him questions, and telling him when I need help. I know these skills can translate to a good paying full-time job, Through Compass, I was able to get my guard card. My goal is to get a full-time job as a security guard. I also create music where I started at TEP. And if you want to hear my music, you can find me on YouTube at Big Porter.
Always good to plug yourself when you get the opportunity. We really appreciate you being here. Next up, I know we're joined via Zoom by folks from EastCon. We have Kristen Hempel, the Adult and Community Programs Director, and a student, Giselle Valentine.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity on the snowy day to join through Zoom. So I just want to start by saying it's about options. It's about hope. It's about growth. I'm Kristen Hempel. I'm the Director of Adult and Community Programs at EastCon, which is the RESC serving Northeastern Connecticut, one of the largest employers in our region, and the Eastern Connecticut Workforce Investment Board subcontractor for coordinating Opportunity Youth programming in our region. A thriving economy requires a pipeline of prepared workers for our businesses, and Connecticut employers have been experiencing challenges finding qualified, prepared people who persevere through the hiring process and settle in for a productive work experience. We must come together to ensure that our upcoming workforce is ready to pick up the mantle. But as the Dalio report indicates, too many of our young people are not ready to do so. Our youth need more than the onboarding process of the past. Amongst other factors, two rise to the top. First, youth frequently have not been engaged in programming that is supportive of developing the soft skills necessary for work and success in work environments. And two, youth frequently have not been exposed to the range of employment opportunities that are accessible to them. This preparation gap between youth and employers is a community challenge that youth pipelines housed in schools and supported with youth employment help to address. These employer-educator partnerships, collaborations, build bridges by exposing youth to opportunities, supporting them with employability skills and development, and offering concrete, achievable goals for youth to work towards. These programs result in stronger attendance, increased GPAs, and often job offers upon graduation. At EastCon, through our partnership with EWIB, we serve hundreds of youth each year. Youth who are bright, who are optimistic, who are eager and energetic. Youth who want to connect. Youth who without programs such as ours are set up for disconnection. In rural communities where transportation is particularly limited and resources additionally sparse, it's especially hard and a bit more expensive. But our youth are worth every penny. Our young people deserve mentors and programs that help them to build not only a resume, but also a vision of themselves as valued contributors, prepared to be leaders in their communities. Our youth don't have simple lives. A speed bump can easily become a roadblock if we don't have programs established to scaffold them through those startup years. They also need the state to commit to actual youth employment funding levels with enough time to appropriately plan the summer programs. These aren't unreasonable requests. Our work sites range from farming and retail to construction and office work, healthcare to manufacturing, and they have a lot to say. For example, Jonathan Trumbull Library says, Caleb and Aaliyah are amazing teens, and I am so happy that they could receive their first paychecks for library work. I look forward to working with you again. Or Hartford Healthcare. We will take as many interns as you can send us. Or to paraphrase Collins and Jewell, from the initial orientation to the weekly support from the staff, our intern was provided with reinforcement and guidance around key soft skills. It was clear to us that the program had a strong impact on the youth's transition to and success in the workplace environment. In fact, many of our employers then go on to offer the youth a future internship or even invite them back as employees. This means that they are not seeing the youth as contributors to productivity alone, but they are also building relationships and maintaining connections with the youth. With that in mind, I want to introduce you to Giselle Valentine from Wyndham High School to hear a bit about the power of her experience.
Hello, my name is Giselle. Thank you for having me here, and I'm going to share my story about overcoming adversity. Growing up in foster care without the support of parents and facing homelessness as a youth, I was uncertain about my future and struggled to find stability or direction. I faced significant challenges at school, mainly due to frequent changes in my living situation. These disruptions, combined with lack of parental support, created barriers to academic success, personal growth, and despite these hardships, I found the Connecticut Youth Employment Program and found an opportunity that would help me bridge these gaps. This program not only offered me a paid internship, but a support system that helped me rediscover my potential and empowered me to give back to my community. Through this program, I was paired with a mentor named Kelsey Rivera. With her guidance, I learned valuable life skills and helped me become a successful student and worker. I participated in an 80-hour internship at the local library where I was able to showcase my dedication and hard work. After completing my internship, I was encouraged to apply for a part-time position, which I was hired for. I was able to get my permit and was provided studying tools and financial support. Now a junior in high school, I continue to excel in the Cool Directions program where I'm actively building my career portfolio, working towards obtaining my driver's license and researching colleges that align with my career pathway. The support and opportunities provided by the employment program gave me the foundation to work towards my goals and allowed me to give back to my community. Without these programs, I may not have had the chance to explore my potential in the workforce or as a student, gain valuable job experiences, and build confidence and motivation to continue striving toward my goals. These programs are vital for youth with barriers like homelessness or a lack of family support. They provide youth a pathway to growth and independence, as well as mentorship and guidance. I believe these programs should continue to be funded and expand as they provide kids like me with another chance to overcoming adversity, grow into self-sufficient adults, and contribute meaningfully to their communities. Programs that help invest in the future of youth and the future of society are important to fund for the expansion of growth and support to disconnected youth. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Giselle. As you heard, youth employment programs are about options, hope, and growth. And to be honest, my greatest disappointment with the program is that we have wait lists. And you've heard this earlier, but wait lists, we have employers who want to participate. We have youth lining up to engage. We have a documented need for the program from both a moral and an economic perspective, we have evidence of ROI, and yet we have wait lists and increasing disconnection. We don't have time to wait for options, for hope, and for growth. We need to connect, and we need to act now. Thank you.
So, and thank you both, but especially just want to thank both Bobby and Giselle for taking time today to share your story. It's not always easy for our young people to come first off into the building and to be able to put themselves on camera and be displayed all across the state. But I'm going to put you back on that spot and say, you know, is there anything that was missing with the opportunities that you were provided that could have helped you go that extra step further for ensuring that you're set for what is next? And that's either Giselle, you're online, or Bobby here in the room.
I feel like being with Compass Youth, I'm getting all the resources that I need for what I want to do.
It's a good answer. Compass Youth probably appreciates that. Giselle, anything from you online?
I'd say with the program, they really got to the point when it came to my success and they heard about my story. So the program itself really helped you excel pretty fast. But yeah, I'm really thankful for them and they helped me with my situations and such.
Awesome. I appreciate those answers. And I think what we did hear from those who spoke with our students today was definitely the need for the state to be able to step up and fulfill their end of the obligation of providing the necessary funding and the resources to ensure that these very successful programs are able to continue and expand the services and the areas in which they're being provided. Up in East Con, you're up in that corner as well as other parts of the state where transportation is always a huge issue. And so, having that conversation around infrastructure and the kind of the intersectionality of that, along with just simply providing opportunities, is a huge piece of this. And I know, we always talk about, developing a new biennium, which is a budget and a moral document. And I will say, the governor and the administration and our legislative leaders are all having those conversations to see how to best put forward something that is going to hopefully address some of these. So again, I thank those in our first portion of this forum for their attendance today. Are there any other questions from folks around the table, online? I'm not sure if any other members, legislative members, are in attendance. See any hands, Jazz? Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. We're going to move on to our next segment, which is exploring our critical public policy solutions. Up first, we have Brian O'Connor from CCM. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I think, when CCM started going through this process and working with the Dalio Education Foundation, we knew there was a problem. But once we determined what the scope was, you realize all the interconnection and pieces that are, some of it's going on, but now there needs to be greater accountability and coordination between the different entities. And I think, what was just described by the young folks who just spoke is that a lot of the community programs are kind of the backbone and support systems that people need. And just looking at it, we're looking at, if you look at the report, more equity in the funding. I think we just need to modernize and update it. Some of the key features is looking at the poverty levels, also English language learners, as well as just sometimes just looking at food security, looking at homelessness. Where is that happening in communities, and incorporating that into the funding where it's needed, and can make the best bang for its buck. And I really appreciate putting this forum together, because I think it kind of helps highlight some of those issues that many people maybe don't focus on. And I think looking at the job development piece that was just described is wraparound services. You need to before you can get a job, you need to make sure that the person is prepared, not only academically, but also in their personal lives. And I think some of those wraparound services, it can include career development, job training is critical. And I think that the fact that the business community is engaged in this process is fantastic, because I think it was quoted that there's 90,000 jobs outstanding. We have 119,000 youth and young people who, want to work, want to be productive, but they need the resources when they're in their youth to get there. And, I look at this session as really optimistic. While I said the scope of the problem is pretty big, I think the solution is there. And again, it's just going to take a lot of hard work and coordination, but doing that will prove positive results. And we're really excited to be part of it, and look forward to working with everybody in achieving these goals and reducing that number of disconnected youth, at least by half, if not more. So again, thank you.
Thank you for that. And yeah, it's always appreciated when we talk about wraparound services and the supports that we can provide. But I think we always need to ensure that we are having the conversation around simply making sure basic needs are met, and that we are taking care of housing and healthcare. And, with those foundational things intact, much of the other work will be easier. But until we kind of fully address that, we're still just going to kind of be running on this hamster wheel of providing wraparound services kind of until the end of time. So appreciate that. Next up, to talk about our state's progress, we have Tia Montanez, Senior Advisor to the Governor's Office. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Curry. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here with you all. I chair the Governor's Kids Cabinet, which is a group of 12 agencies that get together to try to figure out what interagency solutions we can create to provide better outcomes for our children, youth, and families. And we've identified Opportunity Youth as one of our strategic priorities. I look around this room, I see so many partners from my work in Hartford, including OPP and Compass, that were lifelines to the city, and I know they're continuing to do tremendous work. I also see Juan Colon. We reconnected when we were in the city of Hartford. We created the Young Legends program. He was one of the first young people to lead Young Legends, and so it's so wonderful to see him around this table this morning. I am so incredibly proud of you. And, I'll say a couple of things. And reflecting on my experience in Hartford as the former chief operating officer, during my time there, we created an Office of Youth Safety and Wellness within the mayor's office because it mattered that much. We don't think young people should just be the responsibility of a Department of Children and Families. We think, in the city, the mayor should prioritize young people as well. And so a lot of the work that we did there was focused on young people that were survivors of community violence, young people that were homeless, young people that were justice involved. And one of the programs we created was the Hartford Youth Service Corps, which is one of the recommendations of the Young People First program. So we started that because it was based on the feedback we received from young people who said traditional youth employment programs do not work for them. It is not enough to have a job. You also need to, have support from a caring adult who's going to help you figure out where to live and where to go if you need, food, for example. Maybe you need to get back into school. So we created the youth service program, and it's been up and running for 8 years. It's administered by Our Piece of the Pie. There have been over 2,300 young people that have gone through that program. We started it in 2016 when the city was facing bankruptcy, and we had no funds, but where there is a will, there is a way. So every year we secured $2.2 million from the private sector to ensure young people in Hartford had the opportunity to participate in Youth Service Corps. Since then, the states kicked in funding, and the program was expanded to Stamford, where Domus, and they're here this morning, has a Youth Service Corps program in Stamford. And again, we'd love to see that model replicated throughout the state of Connecticut. So grateful for the work of CCM to make that one of the recommendations. I've worked with Joe and his team in the past during my time in the city of Hartford, so it's great to reconnect with him. And Mimi's here, and Mimi from the National Youth Employment Coalition actually provided an award to the Youth Service Program for the work it's been doing. So in terms of other recommendations, I think one of my learnings from the city is when everyone is in charge, no one is in charge. And so I think when you talk about coordination, it's really important to have a plan. I will say to you, when I was in Hartford, and every time we announced a really great program, I would talk to residents afterwards that weren't as excited. And I would ask why. And they're like, Thea, we've been here before. and things haven't gotten better. And people keep asking us what's wrong, but they never come back with the medicine. And so, I want to be really thoughtful, right? As we respond to these recommendations, how do we make sure we're not doing more of the same? How do we make sure we have a plan so that we get the intended results? And so that's something that I'm very focused on, certainly as the state puts together its responses to the recommendations. There's some work that we're doing, but we can always do better. We know that. And so we've been setting up one-on-one meetings between Joe and his team and our state agency commissioners to have those conversations. So this afternoon, Joe and I are meeting with our Department of Labor. We have 3 youth employment programs at DOL. It's about $23 million a year that fund youth employment programs. And, we should take a look at those programs and figure out, are we getting the outcomes that our young people need and deserve? State Department of Education, right? There's a recommendation related to an early warning tool. The state has one, but I think the feedback from Joe is really informative. How do we make it better? How do folks know it exists? Do they have access to it? Do they need training? Is it giving us good data, right? So I think there's a lot of efforts underway that we can take a look at as a state in partnership with community and CCM and figure it out. How do we, again, make what we're doing more effective? And I will say that during the past several weeks, the governor and I have been traveling the state of Connecticut and talking to young people directly. So we met with a group of young people in Hartford. We then went to Domus. We also went to Manson Youth Institution, where Governor and I met with a group of young men that are incarcerated, and we wanted to hear from them as well. So it's really important we meet our young people wherever they are, and that we're asking them directly what it is that they need, and we make sure that they're included in this work that we're doing. So I hope to have more updates to share as we continue to have conversation with our commissioners and CCM and figuring out what more we could be doing. Thank you.
Excellent. I appreciate all of that, Thea. And, you talked about partnerships, and I think that's, again, it's being intentional with those partnerships and ensuring that we can rely on folks outside of the public sector. And because I think our privates and our nonprofits really need to be a part of the solution. So really appreciate you and all the work of the governor's office. Next up, as she was previously introduced, we have Mimi Haley, the Executive Director of the National Youth Employment Coalition. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Well, that was nice. Thank you. One quick thing I wanted to say is Bobby Hemingway, I want to hear your music. I don't know if there's any time after this, but with a name like Bobby Hemingway, I feel like, something's going to happen. So thank you for that. Thank you all for having me here. A lot of you, I know a lot of people in this room. It's really nice. It feels like home. I am really privileged to run. I'm the Executive Director of the National Youth Employment Coalition, but I'm also a resident of Connecticut. If you have been to any of our events, you know that I do have a strong bias to Connecticut that I try to hide because we work on the national level, but I'm always talking about Connecticut. I feel like we have a tremendous example to do better around our youth in this state, but also to lead the country in what we're doing and to really set up a system and the ability to really understand what is working and to show that. And that's really, really important on the national level. I'm going to just briefly talk a little bit about some Connecticut work, my organization, and then some of the federal policy and state policies that we're looking at. So my organization is also referred to as NYEC. I know we've got a lot of members in the room. We've had the privilege of working with Kathy Awad and Earl Bloodworth there. And Domus, I know, is here as well. And Jim Boucher. So thank you for being here, but also have been delighted to work with some of the young legends and Erica Suarez as well. And I know, Kamari, I just met you, but it's really just a great group. And I've had the privilege of working with Lisa Tepper Bates as Deputy Director and Interim ED at the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness. So really, really happy to be here with friends. And so a few things that I want to kind of draw attention to is one is, our organization has been around for 46 years. We have always focused on this population of young people. So there is an enormous amount of knowledge to be had from connecting with all these people across the country that are doing this work as well. NYEC has, done policy work. We're known as a leader in policy and advocacy work in DC on all kinds of things, which I'll talk about in a minute. But we also do a lot of training, technical assistance, and I want to focus on two projects that I think are really relevant to the work that is going on now in Connecticut. And one is our Youth Champion Communities Mayor's Challenge project, where we have worked with young people across the country, really direct service staff and community leaders and mayors to craft, what does it look like for a community to be serving this population of young people? What are those elements that we need to address, and how are we going to create the ecosystems, a human-centered, youth-led design of our ecosystems so that we, are thinking about young people holistically and not just putting them into a training program for a couple of months and hoping for the best, right? So I just wanted to just mention the domains because I think these are really relevant. We're piloting these domains. We had a lot of cities across the country apply to be a part of the pilot. We will be piloting them in Durham, North Carolina, Tampa, Phoenix, Buffalo, Scranton, Everett, Washington, and Albany, New York. That's already started. And those domains that we're going to be looking at are the high quality training and education, youth ecosystems, living wage employment, health and well-being, outreach and engagement, holistic supports, and youth leadership. And then an additional one is really championing all youth, because so often this population of youth that we're talking about that are experiencing disconnection, and just in case people aren't aware, so we say 14 to 26-year-olds who are out of work and out of school. Sometimes we don't define it and we say, opportunity youth, but we also have done a lot of narrative change work and realized that a lot of people don't know who we're talking about when we say that. So that they are comprised of a very diverse group of people within that. And so paying special attention to foster care youth. And I'm really glad that you mentioned our, Department of Children and Families and foster care youth. What are we doing in that transition period and during their systems involvement? Because it's so critically important to understand what happens after. And we know from some statistics, like sometimes that's not so great. So also, justice impacted youth and also young adults. And I know worked a long time with Earl Bloodworth there and his work in Bridgeport, and did a reentry program with him. And I think that there is so much more that we can do specifically to that with that group of youth. And so thank you for bringing that up. Survivors of trafficking. I don't think we have 146 here today, but there's other groups in Connecticut that are working with survivors of trafficking, and it looks different when you're working with a survivor of trafficking than if you're not in the workforce world. And we need to acknowledge that and figure that out. Youth experiencing homelessness, of course, and children of incarcerated parents. So we need to really pay attention to what the backgrounds are and how we can also tailor and prevent disconnection earlier on. We have DOMIS in the house, and I talk about this nationally a lot, but their their family navigation program, I'm not getting the name exactly right, am I, Tom? Family Advocates, thank you, program, where they are getting referrals from the middle schools prior to somebody entering into high school to understand who's going to need those supports, and they stick with them for all 4 years. Did I get that right? Yes, and some really good results from that in terms of retention in schools and young people not dropping out. So replicating programs that we know have the data to show that they're working is a really important piece of this. So I do want to just, briefly touch on data. If you've heard me speak before, you know that I always say this, and I'm repeating it to everybody that I can, is how are we going to know if we're making a difference if we don't know who these young people are? So do we know who these young people are in our communities? I don't think that there is a good answer to that. I've been asking this nationally as well, so I don't want people to feel badly about not being able to answer this, but we need to get there. And, my work with Lisa at the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, we had by name lists of young people. We had by name lists of everybody, but we moved towards having by name lists of young people, and I was the lead during that time on ending youth homelessness. And I could see across the state, okay, what young person has been homeless for over 30 days and why is that? And what are the barriers and what are we going to do? We need that level if we are really serious about ending disconnection. And we don't have that yet. The other thing is, once we have that, how do we know we're making a difference? How are we driving down those numbers in real time? We have measures that are coming out every year, but we don't know week to week how we're doing often as a state. Some communities do a little bit better. Baltimore City has done a really good job with data. They're one of the leads, I think, in the country with their Baltimore's Promise and how they measure. And we have been convening people like the Federal Reserve, the Department of Ed, Secretary Cardona's team, the Department of Labor, head of their data team, and academics to try to address this problem, because it is a workforce on the national level. It's an issue as well. So when we go to advocate for something nationally, and we can't say with great certainty that here's what's working, that's an issue. So I'm really excited about Connecticut getting this right and being a leader in the country to be able to do that. I want to just also talk briefly about the challenges, because I've been doing this work for a long time, and those barriers have not changed in the 30 years that I have been working on this. It's transportation, housing, food insecurity, childcare, mental health. Like, these are the issues that repeat themselves. We can do better. We know how to do better. When we were addressing youth homelessness, we were able to work with those state agencies. We were working with the Department of Children and Families. We were working with the Department of Ed. We know how to do better, and there are models out there to address those things. And there are some creative and some that really don't take that much funding, but we need to get creative, and we need to work in a much more integrated fashion and understand from the beginning what those barriers are for young people. And listening to them is probably one of the most important things that we can do. And often that doesn't happen enough. So, I want to just share with you too the difference. This has been mentioned, that reconnecting young people lifts all boats. It is better for everyone. Lisa had mentioned the $11,000 like in tax revenues that we could get. It's also, it's an average, young people who remain connected earn an average of $31,000 more per year, are 45% more likely to own a home, are 42% more likely to be employed, and are 52% more likely to report good or excellent health. All of those things can also save money, right? So if you're not compelled by the moral imperative to help our young people and to work with our young people, then look at the economic sense of this, because it is a very compelling economic sense. We also just met recently with Connecticut Business Industry Association. I don't know if anybody's here from there. But their number one issue that they are having is employment, workforce. And so being able to work more closely with our employers and have them at the table always is so important on so many levels. We currently in Connecticut don't have a great system for knowing where our youth employment programs are, except for our workforce boards, but on a statewide level, like knowing what the full array of youth employment and training programs are. And we don't have a great way of connecting those young people to those employers. I'm going to just put that out there. I know some people might have platforms and there's things that are going on, but we are not doing a good job with that. And that's both from young people and from our employers that are saying this. Really briefly, because we do so much federal policy work, I just want to say that on the federal, if you're in workforce, you know that the Workforce Innovation Opportunity and the Investment Act has been, it's been abysmal in terms of the funding. It's essentially has been cut by 50% since 2000 when you adjust it for inflation terms. This is the youth employment federal funding, and that has not gone up. We are also facing a very different fiscal and difficult fiscal environment coming up. Most recently, the House Republicans proposed to defund the primary supports, to defund our WIOA, as it's called, our WIOA supports for this population. We continue to work with legislators on the Hill, and there are rays of hope. Just recently, there is the WIOA reauthorization that's actually happening now. Congress has made significant progress in finalizing this for this year. And if, anybody can talk to your senator and encourage this. We think that this deal is probably, it's decent. It doesn't increase a lot of funding. It does have additional funds for apprenticeships. There's a lot of things in this bill. I think if this doesn't go through, then we're looking at a much longer road. So we are supportive of this, and we are hoping to get this signed by the president in the next week or two. And if they don't, pass that, then we're going to be looking at, really some new strategies for the new Congress. There are some opportunities, two opportunities I want to mention. One is that are more difficult to access, but are federal funding streams that are coming in for like infrastructure projects and broadband and things like that. There are workforce dollars that are embedded in those streams. People are having trouble accessing those funds across the country. It's complicated, it's hard to navigate. So we're working on a project with the Department of Labor to make that easier and to figure out ways to access those dollars for young people that will be going into those trades. And it's about contracts and making sure that we're writing contracts in such a way that we're inclusive of opportunity youth. So that is an opportunity, I think, that has been underutilized, and really hoping to work with all of you to make that better. The second thing I will mention is we are really, for the last year, we've been working on launching a bipartisan opportunity youth caucus on Capitol Hill. We have launched that, and we've had a briefing on the Hill as well. I'm pleased to say that Congressman Rosa DeLauro is one of our Democratic members on there, but we also have 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats that are the core that make this up. And I think that, we are looking to grow this significantly in the years ahead. And that could be a really important vehicle for growing the federal funds and the support for all of your programs here in Connecticut. Okay. I could go on, but that's all I got for now, but happy to answer any questions, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that. And it's nice to hear of all the work that is going on, that could be going on, and ways in which we could just simply be better and do better. I appreciate you, talking about the prevention piece. And I think that, when we've had these conversations around Opportunity Youth and the 119 K Commission and the Dalio report, and really being focused in on the 14 and 26-year-olds, we often forget to have those conversations about how to prevent another 119 from filling those shoes if we were to take care of the current 119. And I know we often talk about, you know, that ninth grade being the point in which you can determine a youth's future. I think if you asked any kindergarten teacher in any school, they can tell you exactly where many of these students are going to wind up because of the lack of services and just what isn't being provided to them as far as basic needs and such. So appreciate that. You know, you talked about a bit of partisanship on the Hill in DC, and unfortunately here in Connecticut, the Opportunity Youth and the 119K work at CCM, everything is being done on a very bipartisan basis. And so we're very fortunate in Connecticut that that is the way in which we just decide to lead on a lot of these things. Hopefully that is the case as we move into a new long session in January with the development of a biennium budget. So stay tuned for that. I have a month and 2 days left in my term, so I won't be part of that. Also, you know, data. Like, I mean, we can't talk about that enough. I'm glad to see that, you know, OPM and the state are investing in our P20 Win system so that we have real-time information on a yearly basis to really determine where we are at right now in real time and what direction we need to pivot and be able to always kind of remain nimble and evolve in what the current situation may be. But I think what you highlighted, though, is also the fact that we aren't always sharing a lot of that information with the folks that we should be. And whether that is cross-agency, whether that is throughout our community-based organizations. I know data and privacy is a real concern often. And we have to make sure that we are doing right by our young people. And if that means having the difficult conversations around how to best share that data, we need to be bold and take that step forward. You know, also the various funding streams you talked about that we haven't yet utilized. I mean, there's also a number of opportunities that we could be investing more here right in the state, and whether that's our SNAP employment and training programs through DSS, which is through the USDA, whether that is bolstering our JFIS programming. These are things that are happening now that we can just simply be better and do more of. Yes.
Hi guys, my name is Sania Banks. I'm one of the co-chairs for the Young Legends, and I am doing some special project work for the NYAC. So I just wanted to highlight that these two women, because I also was part of the Youth Service Corp, the Youth Action Council, the original one with Juan that you were talking about. So I do remember you. These two ladies are putting youth voices at the forefront of all decisions. And I feel like that's what the main point is. Like, what we're fighting for is not only do we receive the benefits of what we get from the programs, but our voices are being heard from the beginning to the end. We're part of those planning, we're part of the development, we're part of the writing the grants. You know, like, we are capable of doing these things. Just because we may not have a degree, that doesn't mean we aren't capable. Myself and Juan have been doing this for 17 years. And, you know, just being and seeing this work and seeing how much it has like expanded from just a small group of us inside the state doing Promise Zone work is like, it feels good just to see, like, you know, that youth are at the forefront of these conversations in all of these organizations, not just ours. You know, like, I just wanted to, you know, highlight that because that's very important. We are capable of being a part of it all. That's all.
I hope to see you here more often at many of these conversations. And I think, yeah, that's important that we have those who are most impacted and interested and affected are the ones leading that work. And I think, you know, you say, you know, I don't have a degree and all that. I mean, I think we put too much emphasis on that, and the state has shifted away from, you know, it's not all about going to college, and it's about just what's best for that youth at that time, and then what can we give them to make sure that they're the most successful that they can possibly be. So you hit the nail on the head. So we definitely appreciate that conversation. Any other questions or comments from folks in the room or online?
Like Jeff,
Oh, yes, our good ranking member of education, Representative McCarty. Nice to see you this morning.
Yes, it's so nice to see you too. And if I may just have a personal privilege to just recognize and also thank CCM and United Way for hosting this very informative forum today. It's such an important issue, and I'm very pleased that Connecticut has really centered its focus on helping our disconnected youth. I just wondered if the presenter, I think it was Ms. Haley, if I'm not mistaken, from if she would be able to perhaps share the Baltimore report or some of the reports that are taking place nationwide to see where Connecticut might fill some of those gaps that we're experiencing. And I think, Chairman, that I'm very interested in this issue, particularly with looking what we can do within our school system, working with the Department of Ed and the other stakeholders to keep those children in school. And we've talked about the different type of credit recovery programs, looking at grief counseling in those areas so that the children that are already currently in the schools, that we can try to put a gap stop at that point. So I'm just wondering if we could possibly see some of the reports and look at what the other states are doing in that regard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is a major issue across the country, I would say. What we hear the most, we're a member organization, so we have members across the country. What we hear the most often is that, once young people have dropped out of school, and I'm sure people in this room can relate, it's much more difficult to re-engage and get them reconnected than when you get them before they have dropped out. So that's one of the things I love about the DOMAS program in Stanford. I think that they've figured out a way. They have family advocates that are embedded in the schools so that that data is shared. And Tom, wave at me if I'm getting any of this wrong, but that data is shared with the community-based organization. And as you had said previously, Representative Curry, is that the schools have a lot already going on. So that partnership with the community-based organization is so important. But if all we're doing is giving them the leaver list or the list of young people once they have left, that's much more difficult than doing a little bit of prevention work ahead of time. But we have to fund that prevention work. We have to fund, figure out a way to partner with the school systems and partner with our CBOs to be able to facilitate that. So Baltimore's Promise has done a tremendous job. We convened a group of data geeks. No offense to anybody, I kind of am like a data geek wannabe, and to talk about exactly those kinds of things. And Scott Gall, who many of you might know, was part of that group, and so I could definitely make sure that Baltimore's, what they're doing that's innovative, we've shared with Connecticut. Scott was in the group with us. We're doing another brainstorming session with these federal agencies that are involved. And sometimes the privacy and the concerns about sharing the data, there are ways to get around that. And I mean, that sounds kind of, like we're trying to sneak or something. But no, there are protections and ways you can do MOUs that that should not prohibit us from being able to do this.
Yeah, there are ways to use it responsibly. No, we're not getting around anything. Correct.
Not getting around.
And Representative McCarty, we'll grab that report and we'll have that sent out to the rest of the committee. Thank you for that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Haley, I'm Jay Stange with Transport Hartford. It's a nonprofit that advocates for walking, bicycling, and transit here in the capital region. And I just want to thank everybody here for everything that they're offering about resources for youth. And I want to thank you in particular for bringing up transportation as a barrier that our youth experience. Thanks to Rep. Curry's leadership last year, we have a Hartford bus pilot for youth underway. We have 570 youth in Hartford right now, high school kids, with free bus passes for the whole year to help get them to these opportunities that we're trying to create today. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you know nationally that are ways that we can support our youth. We have a state-owned bus system here in Connecticut that serves a lot of our urban youth, and I think that's a ticket to opportunity, which is what we're calling our Bus Pass pilot program. But anyway, thank you for being here today, and I'd love to hear what you could share with us about what other places are doing to help with that transportation barrier for our youth.
Yeah, thank you for the question and thank you for the work. That's really exciting to hear that there's a program now in Hartford. So there's some really wonderful things going on. The first one that always comes to mind is the state of Maine and the work that they have done to, number one, make sure that all of our young people have driver's licenses. Apparently, and I don't remember this, but you used to be able to get a driver's license from being in high school, right? Like there was a class or something in high school. I got sent to the driver's ed course in the private thing, but so Maine has really done a tremendous job in making sure, because it is so rural, that young people have a driver's license and then, have assistance in getting an automobile. And they've partnered with AAA, which is an innovative thing to do, I think. So we've done workshops on this. I'd be happy to, share with anybody, the work around that. There also was somebody in Connecticut, his name is Tom Shook. I think Tom Langen probably remembers him, but he worked with young people to, there was car donations and they fixed up cars. And I think there's another entity here in Connecticut that does that. And then, the cars would be made available or, sold by the young people, but they would be able to also have some of the cars. So especially in rural areas, it's such a huge barrier. And in, urban areas where there is a bus system, it tends to be a little bit better as long as you can have access to, bus tickets. The challenge with Connecticut, I think, is one of the challenges is that the bus systems often don't go from town to town. So if you're working, 4 towns over, your local bus system isn't going to get you there. And so micro transportation, the investment in that for, smaller vans. We also did a youth participatory action research project. This was years ago in Torrington. And one of the ideas was, this was from a young person brought up that there's a bunch of vans that sit on our school that, nobody is using except for sports teams. Why can't we utilize those to help us get to our jobs after work and get us home? Because we can't go to a job and get home like it's a barrier. So there's, it's thinking creatively. I'm still a huge advocate of having a Uber, which is youth and Uber put together, where young people would be able to run a system where they could get paid and we could invest in it and they could give rides to other young people. One last thing, in Kansas City, they have retired volunteers that run a whole system of transportation with their workforce board. And they said it works really well because it also cuts down on the social isolation of both young people and retired people.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No, excellent. Well, again, thank you everybody for your participation today, both at the presser and today's forum. Especially thank you to our young people who were able to join us and share their stories both here in person and online. Like I said, we're a month and 3 days until the next legislative session. So if you haven't already started to knock down the doors or send the emails to your respective state representatives and senators, you're already behind the 8 ball. So I'd say if you leave here, if you're going to do anything today, make sure you know who that is, first of all, or who they are, and send them a little note introducing yourselves and letting them know what your intentions are for the upcoming session. So again, thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.